Listen to Review-A-WAI.
Right now, right? That's what you say. We get it by now.
Hey, I can't wait to hear what The Undertaker has to say about WrestleMania 12 matchup with Diesel, but let me take you inside the store real quick. If you're caught up with WrestleMania 12 fever, wait till you see this jacket. Look at it. 100% wool blend. Is that kicking or what? On the left side, embroidered the World Wrestling Federation logo. On the right side, we will embroider your name. Obviously, it will be your jacket. Now, I want you to take a close look at these sleeves. Check this out. 100% leather. I know what you're saying. Doc, come on, tell me, how can I get it? How much? Well, you're not going to believe this. Only 3 monthly payments of $59.95. I'm not kidding. Only 3 monthly payments of $59.95. Look at the way the logo pops off that jacket. We're talking a lifetime memory here, ladies and gentlemen. You know the number, 1-800-TITAN-91 when Raw returns The Undertaker.
I'm home to your story, but I bet you don't want to be at. This ain't no home sweet home, it's a home sweet misery. We knew when we got here, they try to put us away. But when they see us walk down the street, they ran the other way. That's free in Liberty, yeah. That's free in the whole USA. That's free, nasty and hot. The good can knock you in, the better it got.
Welcome to Review-A-WAI. I'm John Pollock, and Wei Ting is here with some breaking news.
What's that?
You have a big announcement to make, Wei. Those that have been watching Review-A-Raw we're coming up on a year since Review-A-Raw started. Everyone knows you're very loyal.
What are you talking about? Oh, the TV thing?
The TV show. The TV version, where they get to actually see you.
Oh, okay.
Get to see what I get to see every time.
Oh, okay.
You are very much affiliated with the...
Oh, you're going to talk about my new hat.
The Fantasy Sports Network brand.
Yeah.
Your green hat.
It was a free hat I received.
What is Mitchell and Ness Sports?
This is another free hat that I received.
So many people were asking because you wore this on Monday's show, and I didn't bring it up.
No, did I?
On Review-A-Raw, you wore it on Monday night.
Oh. No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
I could have sworn you were wearing that on Monday's show.
No, that was my hair.
Oh, your hair was red.
Yeah.
Maybe
my hair.
Maybe I've got like blood in my cornea or something, and I'm seeing red.
Nice callback.
Yes. So how are you doing?
Good.
Where'd you get the new hat? Is all I want to ask.
They were giving them away outside. Substance was.
Oh, okay. What is Mitchell and Ness Sports?
I think they're like a hat company.
Oh, a hat company making hats. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
So that's pretty much all there is.
It's a major change. You now are all set for Christmas.
Listen,
between your hat collection.
If you give me free shit and it looks decent, I'll most likely wear it for a couple of years.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to call you on that if you give me free shit, because there's many free shirts that I've given you.
Oh, well, I did say if it looked good.
Good. Yeah, you did qualify it. So why the fuck would you wear that? Wei, you are. I'm going to start a new thing in my life called my MVP.
Okay.
And you are the first recipient of the John Pollock MVP of the Week award.
The award of
you are
excellence?
the John W. Pollock Award of Excellence.
Nice.
I have the trophy in my trunk that I'm going to give to you.
Thanks.
Why? For choosing this Raw.
Yeah.
On a 7-day period where I don't know how long John Pollock is going to last. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I'm falling apart work-wise.
It sounds very ominous.
There's just too much. There's too much out there.
You mean work-wise, not life, right?
Work-wise,
okay.
Yes. Just too much. And here at the end of it, we had a review to do, and Wei had selected a 45-minute episode.
That was the key. It really was the key.
I could review 1996 Raw the rest of this year.
Yeah. I think what did we do last week? We did that Daniel Bryan one, which was actually a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. It was very different.
Yeah.
Super Brawl, I think that was a turning point for us. While great positive reviews, that's one that's a once-a-monther. That's like you and I having that all-out 25-minute war. Yeah. And it goes to the judges, and we're never quite the same after that fight because it takes a lot out of us to entertain the people.
Yeah, we need to kind of build back up. Maybe, do some amateur bouts in the meantime, some light sparring in the meantime. And this was light sparring.
I contemplated a medical suspension where I'd have to take some time off.
Yes.
Get back.
But I mean, I didn't choose this show simply because it was, 45 minutes. There's a purpose to this.
We're telling a story.
Yeah.
A 3-arc story.
We are approaching WrestleMania month, and of course, as we've done in previous years, this year, we wanted to not only do the show going into the Raw, but the show coming out of the Raw. Or sorry, the show going into Mania, but the show coming out of Mania as well. So we'll do a sort of a 3-week story arc this particular week heading into WrestleMania 12.
Yes. So today we're going to review the go-home edition of Raw for WrestleMania 12 in 96. Next week is WrestleMania 12, and then the following week, we're going to do the Raw coming out of it, which to me is the first time the night after Raw it featured something. Because as we see, there's a vignette for it. It would be Mick Foley's debut. It's the first time you can point to something of that use of the night after Raw as introducing a new character. Right. And there were big and small night after WrestleMania Raws. Not to say this was anything close to what it's become, but now that's the biggest Raw of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
The night after WrestleMania.
Yeah. I'm just laughing because it also is an excuse to watch another 45-minute Raw.
I'm justifying, Way. I'm justifying. We've also got 6 weeks, and we got to preserve some of these WrestleManias because it's not going to be too long, Way, before we're reviewing WrestleMania 31.
Yeah, I know. I've always kind of thought this, but we typically do about at least 2 a year, and I don't think that's much at all. We are kind of running dry, though. What do we have? I don't think we've done
Well, you know what we are, Way? We've gone in the same direction of so many talented wrestlers. We started off as spot monkeys.
Oh, we did 3 or 4 the first year.
We just went out with no psychology.
Yeah.
We were doing WrestleManias out of WrestleMania season.
Oh.
We got to get our shit in.
Yeah.
Was our motto. That's what me and Way always said.
Yeah.
I said, hey, let's do multiple reviews. Let's just do this. Let's do that. Let's not even think about it. There was no psychology behind our work. And as we have progressed, we've become smarter workers because now we plan and we try to get the most out of everything that we do.
That's it.
And we spread it across because now, Way, we're breaking down. We're physically, we're getting low.
We need to change our style.
We do. We do need to go a little, Jushin Liger to ourselves.
Yeah, you had to have that neck surgery as a result of this podcast.
Exactly. And, Way, you're a man of many hats, and you've got to be able to diversify yourself.
2 hats.
So we're in this for the long run. We gotta get some years out of this.
Yeah.
We gotta look to the long term, Way.
Yeah. Eventually we'll run out if we do 2 a year, unless we start doing 1 a year.
Well, then it's time to do the retirement gimmick, Way.
Yeah.
And then that's got to be a real retirement.
Yeah.
There's no Terry Funk here.
No, I don't plan on it.
What wrestler do you feel, what high-profile wrestler that has retired over the last number of years do you expect to see another match out of?
That has already retired?
That is retired, that I think most would feel we've seen their last match.
Who's had an official retirement, or they've just disappeared?
No, not disappeared. Someone who has been inactive, I'll say. I'll throw
Bill Goldberg.
All right, Bill Goldberg. That's a decent. How about of these options? Okay,
whoever's facing the Undertaker.
Whoever's facing the Undertaker. Well, that could be someone coming out of a hiatus, maybe. Of the names Shawn Michaels, Edge, Daniel Bryan. Those would be 3. Do you see a match out of any of those 3?
Health-wise, I mean, the person who seems to be in the best shape is probably Shawn Michaels. The other, who did retire kind of out of his own will. The other 2 were forced into it at an earlier age. So I would say...
I think Edge 100% is never doing another match.
Yeah, and I think Daniel Bryan is probably still very much fighting that itch. And I'm sure, I feel, though, as long as he's affiliated with the WWE, making some type of money, and I think as long as, I feel like at this point, the public is trying to convince him not to have another match, knowing the severity of his injuries. So I feel like, I'm sure he might still kind of do little things here and there in private, but I don't know if, unless he really decides to go to Japan and, ignore basically everybody who's been telling him not to wrestle. I don't see Daniel Bryan wrestling another match either. So out of the three, I would have to say Shawn Michaels, but I don't see him wrestling another match either.
I'm going to work in a small plug here. This week on the MMA Report, I'm going to have on Dr. James Thompson, who is with...
Not the MMA fighter.
No, I thought the exact same thing, actually, with James Thompson. No, this is Dr. James Thompson from Evoke Neuroscience, which might not mean anything to people, but that is the organization that came up with this Evox test that Daniel Bryan ended up taking in New York and ended up very much, I believe, dictating his decision. So if you want a little background on that, he can't speak too specifically about patients he has communicated with or worked with, but I do bring up Bryan Danielson because that's how this organization has come onto many people's radar. So that's going to be on the MMA Report.
Who would you decide out of those three?
Of those three, I believe Shawn Michaels at some point might feel like doing a match. I think mentally he's shut the door to it. But
I'm sure he gets offered once a year.
He also stated, of course, he also stated either right before or right after his retirement to The Undertaker that there might be a time when his kids are grown up that he does want to perform in front of them, and he always said that he would leave that open if he so chose to do. His children are getting older now, and he might just wake up one day and say, I want to do one more match. And there wouldn't technically be anything stopping him from doing that other than himself. Though you hear him, there's a guy that was so... And 1996 is a perfect segue, where this guy's life was professional wrestling, and now he's completely divorced from it. If you hear any interviews with him, I mean, this is not someone that follows the product. He has moved on. And there's a part of me... Edge is a lot the same way. And I look at those guys like those are some success stories of guys that they made their money and now they've moved on. And for some, that's the best way, is just completely move on from it. It's like a tough breakup with a girl. You don't stay in contact with them. You don't hang out. You just got to go separate ways.
You also got the sense with, in particular, somebody like Shawn, like you felt like they had gotten wrestling out of their system, and they didn't miss it by the time that they were about to go. Whereas Daniel Bryan doesn't seem like somebody who had at all gotten professional wrestling out of his system, despite his many accomplishments.
No, I feel he's going to go through much what Steve Austin has always talked about, how long it took him to get wrestling out of his system, because he was forced out of it. And, I mean, that was at a time, too, where the medical observations in the WWE were nothing compared to today. But he said he went through a horrible time period of just a lot of excessive drinking and just trying to get... He said he didn't get wrestling out of his system for years.
Yes, and I think part of that is, probably goes back to something else that was newsworthy in the Ronda Rousey-Ellen interview last week, where you have people who are so dedicated to their profession. Their entire routine, their entire identity is centered around that one thing, and that's certainly probably the case with somebody like Bryan Danielson. And when you take that away, what are they? What do they become without this one thing they dedicated so much of their time towards?
Imagine if you lost your eyesight and you couldn't shoot anymore.
Okay, that would be terrible. And shooting would be the least of my concerns.
Probably. Maybe that's an extreme example.
Yeah. My job would be the least of my concerns.
Did you happen to watch, did you hear of the show Vinyl that started on HBO last week?
I've seen ads for it everywhere. They've been pretty aggressive with that. I haven't seen it, though.
I watched the season premiere over the weekend. This thing, we'll get to the review, I promise. I'm not,
I don't care.
I'm not killing time here. I want to discuss all this with you.
We got plenty of time today.
Yeah, this is a quick review. The season premiere, first of all, this is directed by Martin Scorsese, so no fucking around.
Real directors are getting into TV now.
Yeah, it's
like when I say real, I mean like film directors.
There's definitely, I don't think there is that stigma that was there even 10 years ago that if you are in film, that television is somehow a step down. I think a lot of them look at now with so many streaming options and creative freedoms with a Netflix or on HBO, which has always been the case. This is a great outlet for a lot of directors, actors, actresses. So Martin Scorsese, that carries a lot of weight. Yeah. And just the concept of here it is, it's the 70s, it's the record industry. I find that really fascinating.
What's the premise?
The premise is this focuses on this individual, Richie, who runs a record company, and you get some flashbacks to how he came into power. They're on the verge of this big acquisition by a German company, and just all of the...
Is it fictitious?
Yes. Okay. It's all just, the politics of the music industry. You see different segments of rising artists trying to get that deal, how... just the dirty tactics of the record industry at the time.
So do we see like well-known artists being portrayed by other by actors, or is it all fictitious?
I mean, there's references like this company that he runs. They lost out on signing ABBA, who went on, and here they are. Their creative team is like, this shit. And the guy comes. Yeah. This guy Richie comes in. He's like, "Can you hear that? They've got 3 bars, and they're going to be filling football stadiums." And they're basically like, fuck off. Mm-hmm. And then they're in the process of trying to sign Led Zeppelin, and it includes a fictitious Robert Plant, and Led Zeppelin ultimately does not sign with this label. So there are real artists portrayed here.
Right.
Anyway, I don't want to give away the whole thing, but this season premiere, though, it was 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And on HBO, that means commercial-free.
Wow.
That's too damn long.
That's like 4 episodes. Or, well, I guess 2 if you're doing an hour.
Yeah, so I mean...
2 hours is too long?
That's a long show.
That's like a movie.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
I think that, this is... The show is regularly 1 hour commercial-free. I think that's a long investment of time. 2 hours commercial-free, to me, that's a real fucking investment.
I mean, come on. Coming from somebody who watches 3 hours of pro wrestling... every single Monday.
Exactly, and that is very much classified as a job.
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet, but it's HBO, so they're releasing it week to week, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it airs Sunday nights on HBO.
I don't know if I can get used to that anymore. Having to wait week to week to watch a show.
You can binge it at the end of the season.
If I do watch it, I'd probably wait till then. But at that point, I feel like I wouldn't. The hype is not necessarily there anymore to watch it. Like Better Call Saul, I was kind of intending on waiting until the end of the first season to binge watch. But
did you?
No, because
season 1 of Better Call Saul was very good, and then it restarted last weekend, and I'm waiting till the season's over to watch it. Yeah. I don't have time to dedicate an hour to another show.
It was very good. It is worth watching?
Oh, I thought so. I think in terms of a spin-off, this is one of the better ones.
Okay.
There is a great episode. You remember Mike from Breaking Bad?
Of course.
There's a great episode that is completely his backstory. Okay. And it is the best episode of the season.
Okay, I might give it a chance now.
I liked it a lot. There's enough crossover from Breaking Bad without going too much like, okay, we're just operating in the shadow of Breaking Bad. It's its own show. Mm. And cool. A very good one.
What else?
Bob Odenkirk is excellent.
What else have you been watching lately?
Wrestling and MMA, way. That's about it. Actually, The People vs. O.J. Simpson is my favorite show on TV. Mm. This show is so great. The acting is out of every week, there's like more people. The guy who plays Johnny Cochran is excellent. John Travolta is tremendous. Nathan Lane is now on it.
As who?
The guy who plays Runkle on Californication. He's on it as another lawyer, as what's his name? Alan Dershowitz. I mean, the acting is just... it's unbelievable. Cuba Gooding Jr. is very good in it.
They got some big-name actors.
Oh, they've got a ton of big-name actors and actresses on this. The person who plays Marcia Clark is fantastic.
Do you think we'll ever kind of get to the day where... What are the TV awards?
The Emmys?
The Emmys, yeah. Where the Emmys will be as big as the Oscars.
They're pretty big on their own. I mean,
not nearly as big as the Oscars.
No, I mean, there's more kind of flash and substance to the Academy Awards.
There's always going to be more money in film, I believe. But I mean, maybe it's going to start to balance with the caliber of actors that are on shows like that.
Are you going to watch the Oscars this weekend?
Not really. No.
Nor will I.
I feel like I've only seen like a couple of the movies.
I saw a few this year, but not a ton.
I watched Mad Max, and in fact, this weekend I tried to get my dad to watch it.
Oh boy!
My dad, first of all, we spent the day watching, or spent the evening watching Taken 3. He loves the Taken movies. Like they're very low on story, right? The premise is very simple. It's like a one line thing. Guy's daughter gets kidnapped, yada yada yada. And so he loves these movies.
Does she repeatedly get taken in the movies?
No, the first one is the daughter gets taken. The second one, I believe the wife gets taken. Third one, he's kind of the one that gets taken.
Awful luck.
He's framed for the murder of his wife.
Oh, man.
So,
well, there's a spoiler.
Yeah, so...
Who cares?
Anyway, the movie's already on Netflix, so whatever. Anyway, so yeah, my dad loves this movie, loved Taken 3. Not as much as the second one. Or, sorry, not as much as the first one. So anyway, afterwards, he's like, oh, do you have any other action movie recommendations? And I'm like, you gotta watch Mad Max. This thing's nominated for, like, an Oscar, and action movies never get nominated for Oscars. And so we're sitting there, and I downloaded, like, a Chinese subtitles for this version of Mad Max. And I'm watching it. And the guy's like, this shit is weird. This is all too weird. And then he eventually is just like, I'm tired, I'm going to sleep. And he just bailed. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
So, you know, if he was a part
It was no Taken.
If he was a part of the Academy, I don't think Mad Max would be winning.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. If Mr. Ting is not giving the thumbs up on Mad Max, that is not a good omen for this Sunday.
Mm-mm.
Well, let's go to the never Emmy-nominated Monday Night Raw. Do you think that show will ever get nominated for an Emmy?
If Martin Scorsese directs it, perhaps.
It probably should be up for an Emmy. I mean, of all the things...
Raw?
I'm not saying for Best Original Storytelling.
Do they nominate, like, sports?
Sports get nominated for
yeah?
Emmys. Yeah.
For production?
Oh, yes.
True. In terms of production, I could see it. Yeah.
Like, to me, it's really what... to me, if Netflix is up for, you know, nominated series and the Super Bowl can be nominated for production, WrestleMania is one of the... I mean, the production of WrestleMania is incredible.
Yeah, there's definitely an argument to be made. Wrestling just... It seems like it's, you know, any legitimate form of awards or
I'm not arguing
or
that Dean Ambrose should be up for Best Supporting Actor or anything, but I think more on the production level of WWE. I mean, there is no disputing the WWE's level of production, and WrestleMania is an incredible visual spectacle.
Well, I think Lucha Underground probably should be up for some nominees in that case.
They were pushing for it.
Really?
Lucha Underground. Yeah. I mean, there's some very good things that Lucha Underground produces.
Legitimate name attached to it.
I enjoy Lucha Underground every week. That's a fun hour to just watch every week. I love every 1 hour wrestling show. And I don't know if that's me just bell curving everything because it's only an hour. Mm-hmm. But when I sit down, whether it's NXT, Lucha Underground, or Ring of Honor that I watch, I always find the hour flies by. I generally enjoy most of it. It's just a fun hour. I'm never looking at my watch. I'm never, when's this going to be over?
Yeah, like I feel like wrestling fans at this point are conditioned to stay for that duration. And when you realize something is already starting and peaking within the span of a third of the time, then you don't even have time to be bored.
I think that's the 1 hour. That's all you need.
I feel like 90 minutes I could do.
Did this Monday Night Raw, did they not get everything they needed across in this hour?
Yes, but it also did not feel nearly as large of an event, this Raw.
No, but I don't think that's necessarily because of the time. But I think that's also more of the era of the time.
Perhaps. But I'll also say that this Raw felt largely missable. So if you're listening to this review,
I think that
you're wasting your time.
This whole show, it had one goal in mind: make me want to watch WrestleMania 12 next week.
And did it do that?
By the end of it, I thought they
pushed the main event very well.
It's night and day to what a Go Home Raw today will look like for WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not even comparable. This was actually, and to that point, taped weeks before this aired. This was actually taped on March the 11th, airing on Monday, March 25th of 1996. This was taped at the Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio, Texas, which, when I went to Raw with Jason Agnew in San Antonio, we're going to the big arena in San Antonio, the AT&T Center, I want to say. I believe that's what it's called. And as we're walking there, like next door to it is this small building, which is the Freeman Coliseum, which the WWF held a Survivor Series there in 94. And I'm just looking at it, I'm like, that's the fucking Freeman Coliseum? It looked like this little, like the AT&T Center, just
didn't. I mean, these Raws weren't held at large venues.
No, they weren't. But I just, you hear the Freeman Coliseum. It's a Coliseum way.
Who's Freeman?
Freeman was.
No, don't look it up.
I can't stand this anymore when people. You Canadians. This is what happens when Canadians talk about things that they have no earthly idea about. Let's find out about the Freeman Coliseum. Maybe it's about Ian Freeman, the UFC veteran. Come on.
You're on the Wikipedia for Freeman Coliseum. And
who's it named after?
Who cares?
I don't know. I
don't care. Don't even bother fact-checking it, okay?
Holy Christ. When do you think the Freeman Coliseum opened, Way?
1940.
You looked this up?
No.
They broke ground in November of 1947 for an October 1949 opening, and then they renovated it in 1993. So this was the Freeman Coliseum 2.0 for this Raw taping.
Yeah,
holy Christ, this thing is still standing. It's an amazing accomplishment. So,
I mean, the Rico isn't that a pretty old building originally?
The Rico is
the shell of it.
Yeah, I mean that whole kind of exhibition place grounds. I don't know when the Rico Coliseum proper was.
All right,
exactly
I've had
formed.
enough of talking about these.
Okay, this was not a tiny building, by the way. This was still they fit in like 9,000 people for this show, for these tapings, and they sat through I think 4 episodes of Raw being taped.
9,000 was probably the population of whatever town that was back in 1940.
Do you want to know what was historical about these television tapings in some form or fashion?
What's that?
It is that the night before was Dwayne Johnson's first ever match for the WWF, and these tapings featured his second match against Chris Candido. So if you were there at the Freeman Coliseum, you might have not been blown away by any of the tapings you saw, but years later, actually later that year at the Survivor Series, when Rocky Maivia showed up, you could say, hey, I saw that guy in a dark match against Skip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This guy's not going anywhere.
I saw Brock Lesnar at a Fan Access.
That's right.
WrestleMania 18.
At WrestleMania 18, and then he debuted the night after WrestleMania.
Okay, I thought you were going to try to quiz me on where it was.
No, it wasn't at the Freeman Coliseum.
But when you look at the roster, actually, at this time in 1996, especially, the week following with the addition of Mick Foley, it really was the building blocks, I would say, of what would later become the Attitude Era. You could see it with, the introduction of men like The Rock, of course. And was Austin on the roster at this time yet?
Austin had not... Yes, he was.
He was there.
Yes.
And of course you had Hunter Hearst Helmsley, featured in a very prominent role, not just, on this show, but at WrestleMania. This 96.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So Steve Austin, I'm just thinking the timeline in my head. Yeah, he had come in.
He was definitely there before 97 because he had the match with Brett, so...
Austin was in by the tail end of 95, I want to say.
Right.
And I think, he's on the free-for-all at WrestleMania.
Cool.
That's like the Fight Pass prelims.
Yeah, but I mean, look at what a year he was about to have.
Even as much as the King of the Ring has looked at that guy's launching pad, he was back on the free-for-all at SummerSlam.
No.
I mean, look at that. Typically, the King of the Ring would springboard you to a main event at SummerSlam. In Austin, it was the complete opposite.
That's how the WWE history books would like to try to remember it.
In fact, Steve Austin and Savio Vega fought to a double countout on these tapings. Sorry, dude, this is crazy. These tapings, Austin's first appearance on Raw as Stone Cold.
Wow.
These tapings. So he had been in the WWF prior, but this was the first time he was ever identified as Stone Cold on these tapings.
Right.
Which had aired, he was on a Raw that had aired earlier. It's interesting when you go back and look at some of this undercard stuff.
I feel like in hindsight, I mean, the Ringmaster is definitely not a great name for anybody. It makes you think of a lion tamer at the circus.
The Ringmaster.
Yeah. But Stone Cold is, I don't think that much better. As a name.
A name is always what you make. Granted, there are some hideous names that you just can't overcome.
I think Mankind is a terrible name.
Steve Austin, though, Stone Cold is always going to be identified as what an awesome name because of what it became.
Yeah, it's like the band Korn.
Korn's an awful name.
I heard. Actually, it might have been Korn themselves who, in a Much Music interview, said this. How Korn was a terrible name, but it's what you make of it.
I read an interview with Linkin Park, and they were asked about the name, and it was like a local park that they named it, and they said, if we have good music, the name will become great over time, and if we suck, the name will be associated with shit. Essentially, is what they said.
It is true. Yes, it is true.
Like Dolph Ziggler. Is that name held against him in any way? That's an awful, awful, awful name.
Yeah, but I think certain names will give you a step ahead, whereas certain names will kind of...
Chili McFreeze would have been tough for even the most overperformer to overcome. Yes. I don't think Chili McFreeze makes it to WrestleMania 14 with Mike Tyson and Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, I don't think so. So certainly it kind of helps you start out a little better, but it definitely doesn't make or break.
Imagine being given Shawn Michaels just a clean slate, and he's given the Boy Toy theme music.
Michael Hickenbottom?
Yes. It's like, you're just a sexy boy, and you're going to use this music for the rest of your career.
I mean...
Not too many people who could just adopt that music and keep it throughout their career. To where 40-plus Shawn Michaels is coming out to... I'm just a sexy boy.
Or
sexy boy toy.
Or 50-plus Jose Lothario coming out to the theme song as well on this show.
Listen, kid, we're going to call you the Super Sock. And that's not me doing Vince McMahon. Some other promoter came up with the Super Sock.
Super Sock, yeah.
Can't just be the regular sock.
Yep. So, yes, WrestleMania 12, the build for WrestleMania 12.
All right, that's Way telling me to shut up and get to the review from San Antonio, Texas, which immediately began cold with a Shawn Michaels entrance. There was no pomp and circumstance to start off Raw. No pyro. It was just Shawn Michaels coming out, and we are instantly reminded of the time period as he came out accompanied by a camcorder.
The click cam.
The click cam.
Yeah, the click cam. Now, like, had they... I guess he had always kind of he had already started to call his fans the click.
Yes, he had started, utilizing that term.
Yeah.
Because he was probably like, this is a great name that we call ourselves. How can I make some cash off of this?
Yeah. Made plenty of cash.
That's what he would call all of his fans as he came out. I wonder if they ever got to the point where they were going to market click cams.
I feel like it would be a little bit expensive, especially at the time.
Oh, yeah, because the WWF was very cognizant of
quality,
the amount that they would charge people for garbage.
Oh, well, I'm trying to think. Even the shittiest camcorder would have probably cost, at least a few $100s, which is probably more than what they were selling.
What about 3 easy installments of $59.95?
Well, as long as Doc Hendricks was selling it, I
real leather strap for the camcorder.
Yes.
With a big Shawn Michaels bicep around the strap.
Look at the logo pop out on this.
Where you insert the tape and it comes out, it's a heart, like it's pumping.
Wow.
Because it's just infatuated.
You should time travel back to that period and pitch these ideas.
His opponent tonight, at first I thought in the ring we were going to have Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels before I took a closer look, and it was...
And look at the dorky Leif Cassidy.
Look at that dorky Leif Cassidy as Vince McMahon introduced his talent that he was paying. The dork.
The dork, Leif Cassidy, a younger Al Snow.
A very young Al Snow. A non-facial hair Al Snow.
Yeah, and of course working with Marty Jannetty as part of the New Rockers. And here, I don't recall them being heels, but they were clearly working as heels here, playing almost...
They were brought back to be these retro... They were there to be a parody of the real Rockers.
Right.
Jannetty having to play a parody, essentially, of himself.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's what happens when, you go through so many issues with a company and suddenly we're not going to rely on you for anything substantial.
Do you remember them doing like vignettes or anything like that? How would they kind of like show that character? That
they would always do campy promos.
Stuck in the 80s.
Yeah, they just do very retro style promos and just sound like dorks. I mean, that was kind of the direction that they were given. And I know Jannetty was not a big fan of this because he thought it was somewhat just mocking. He was brought back in a mocking role.
Yeah.
And this was someone, I'm I always look at Marty Jannetty. The amount of opportunities this guy was given, even after when we talked about the 92 Rumble and the 93 Rumble. I mean, this guy was always poised for something big and would screw up.
Yeah, so instead of like, if he had it his way, instead of like the Rockers, they'd be like maybe the New Metalers or something.
Who did they call when they wanted to get a big angle over for Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 21? What's Marty up to? And Marty came back and they had this awesome match in 2005.
They probably won't be calling him back right now.
I would think Marty has exhausted his calls at this point. Yeah. That would be my strong assumption. He would not be part of my list of people that you consider are retired that are going to do another match in the WWE.
No, as long as he's on Facebook, he probably won't be coming back.
Bret Hart comes down to join the commentary, and the feud that they would just always be faithful to, the Jerry Lawler-Bret Hart feud.
Yeah.
This is a true lesson that annoys me to this day. When a program ends and we're just supposed to forget it. Jerry Lawler and Bret Hart were heated rivals, and just because they were not feuding at this time, we called back to a feud that took place, that started in 93, that featured a match in 95, and still, they were not going to put Bret and Jerry Lawler in a position where they had to be nice to one another or have the viewer ask the question, why is Bret tolerating Jerry Lawler?
I love it.
So Lawler just ran off like a coward to go check on his car when he had the sight of Bret Hart coming down to the announce table.
I really love this era of Jerry Lawler. I think he really at his best playing this type of cowardly heel. He did such a fine job of it, too. And you're right. I mean, that is, I think, a rivalry that a lot of people who watched it at the time remember very fondly, even to the point where when Bret returned in 2010, 2011? 2010. Brought up Jerry Lawler, and Jerry Lawler at the announce desk during that return still gave a very kind of snarky look at Bret and trying to at least, you know, throw a bit of a reference back to when they were heated rivals, and I love that. I love that about this.
I feel that, you know, in the modern sense, no one is going to expect people to go to the lengths of protecting programs outside of the program. I mean, guys traveling together, I mean, that's hardly a taboo today. But I think in the body of the show, when you have just this big feud, I think you should be at least, I mean, play to, you know, just the faith you have in your characters, that there should be lasting effects.
I agree. I think, though, part of the reason why we probably don't get things like that anymore is probably because feuds are exhausted so much quicker now with so many pay-per-views. You don't get, you know, half a year-long feuds, really. You get maybe 2-3 month feuds at the most. And people also turn so much more these days. The pace of professional wrestling storyline is just so much accelerated that you don't really have kind of that long-lasting severity like somebody like a Jerry Lawler who really only had maybe 2-3 angles, this being the most prominent one, would always be known for.
Yes. And then later this year, he would feud with Jake Roberts, and his goal was for Jake to fall off the wagon as a recovering alcoholic. Bret Hart on commentary was so entertaining for many different reasons. He sits down with Vince McMahon, by the way, so these two got to call a match together, and he takes off his sunglasses explaining that he wants to watch this match, quote, in the right light. And Bret Hart, who the master of subtle digs in this particular match, he essentially equates Shawn Michaels' style to that of a luchador, and basically says that the Mexican style is flashy.
This is because Jose Lothario.
Of course, with the Jose Lothario influence.
Yeah. Again, I've got nothing but respect for Jose Lothario. He's a great, great wrestler, and I don't want to take anything away from him. I just feel, and it's just my opinion, that the Mexican style wrestling, as flashy as it is and as fast and you know, it's action-packed kind of wrestling. It's not punishing.
That's punishing.
Pretty well getting his thoughts across about Lucha Libre.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
This horse shit.
And it was, I think that was definitely part of the strength of hearing Bret in commentary here, was the fact that, you can tell, like, all of this done was of course to build to the storyline, but there also seemed to be a lot of genuine, sincere thoughts that I wouldn't doubt were, Brett's true thoughts coming in, like things like this, how he doesn't like Sean's lucha, or at least Jose Lothario's lucha libre style.
Cassidy hit this twisting Uranage, and Marty Jannetty made his way down to ringside. And in my favorite line, Brett says, "It's like soup. You just keep adding to it. I thought it was enough that I was down here," as he gave this bullshit grin to Vince McMahon, which just screamed, "Why'd you overbook the shit out of this?"
And right now, Lee Cassidy is really taking to Shawn Michaels and coming out for perhaps a little closer look as well. Marty Jannetty, former tag team partner of Shawn Michaels, now teaming up with Lee Cassidy. They're the New Rockers. Little moral support, perhaps, by Marty Jannetty.
It's like soup. You just keep adding to it, I thought it was enough that I was out here.
Well, the recipe continues. Little herb, little spice, no telling what's going to happen here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, right here on Raw. Anything can happen. Stay with us.
It was great.
And Vince just chuckled at this. Well, like, Vince chuckled, like, the two of them were like joking around out of character. It was very funny.
Soup. Soup. I love the analogy that Brett used of soup.
It's like soup.
This guy has no reason to be down here. We got the main eventers of WrestleMania out here. What the fuck more do we need? And we came back from a break, and Michaels received a cut on his forehead. And they did the fish out of water spot here, with both going for pinfall attempts and kicking out. Cassidy lifts Michaels up over his head, and Michaels comes off his shoulders and crashes down with his legs catching the top ropes.
They were trying for like a reverse powerbomb, like the Big Show used to do that alley-oop.
Yes, and instead they were right against the ropes, and Michaels nearly crippled himself.
The idea was probably for him to be draped across the ropes, but his feet caught, and it looked a bit messy.
Cassidy hits a superplex as Hart just smiles and says, "That's one of my moves, and I expect him to see that on Sunday." I enjoyed this guy so much. Then he calls out Cassidy for making a mistake going for the same move twice as Michaels blocks the superplex and hits a top rope clothesline. McMahon says that many felt that Michaels should not have come back from that severe concussion. What's old is new again in WWE.
When was that?
Well, this was 96. The story
concussion.
Well, the story
Syracuse.
Yeah, they had played it off that here he was. They played off the real life incident where he got beaten up at a bar by these guys in Syracuse and then had post-concussion syndrome as a result of it. And then, of course, had the fainting spell on Raw with the angle with Owen Hart. So he had been dealing with this concussion going into WrestleMania.
It was all over the past year that had happened.
Yeah, since the prior fall. And maybe Vince McMahon in 2016 would be forcing Shawn Michaels to have to step away due to this concussion. But in 96, his follow-up was, "Are you going to go after the head?" And Brett had to, I guess, contemplate this. That's his weak spot, the brain. Gonna stomp some CTE into Shawn Michaels on Sunday in Anaheim. Jannetty trips Michaels from the floor, and then he holds him in the corner by his tights, and Hart won't stand for this. He goes and he stops Jannetty. Cassidy misses him in the corner. Shawn hits the sweet chin music and pins Leaf Cassidy at 8:32.
I thought a good match. It was nice to see a younger Al Snow taking on Shawn Michaels. Shawn is obviously great, but I thought Cassidy here looked very good as well, despite that reverse powerbomb. I thought Cassidy overall showed a very good variety of moves and was able to wrestle with Shawn in a very nice match.
Fine match involving these two, especially by 1996 standards of Raw.
Yeah. What did you think of Brett on commentary?
Oh, I found him tremendously entertaining. I thought he was the right balance of little subtle shots, but it all played into the context of the match. It always played into this match on Sunday. It was not just getting in little references that played no value to this. I enjoyed Brett quite a lot on this.
I enjoyed his subtlety as well because unlike their 1997 feud, this was both of them kind of going in as baby faces, respectful of one another. 97 a lot more personal and ugly, of course, but this one, it was Brett always showing respect for Shawn, but pointing out things that he didn't like about Shawn, like his wrestling style, and just largely keeping it to kind of the competition and the athletic aspect of it. And I thought Brett did a very, very convincing job.
It also heightened so well that by 97, where these guys are just going at it on promos and you believe that these two hate one another, you can go back to something like this and see the seeds of Brett that can appreciate this guy's talent.
Back when they were, quote-unquote, friends, but never would hang out.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can get the subtle references from Brett that he is not exactly a fan of Shawn Michaels, the person. Yeah. The seeds of that are very much planted and then would obviously grow very much over the next year plus. Michaels moves Hart aside in order to confront Marty Jannetty, and this pisses off Hart, who gets into the face of Shawn Michaels, and it's Jose Lothario, the super sock, who has to step in to break this up. And Vince pushes the biggest athletic event in WWF history coming up at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and I thought Brett, like I said, I thought he had a good showing overall here until this final promo where, for whatever reason, Brett came back to fetch his sunglasses, I guess, and thus put on his headset for one last promo. And Brett just rambled on here. And you could tell like he was at the point where he was talking and just scrambling for the right words to end his promo. And how does he end it? Shawn Michaels, I'm going to beat him so bad, he better do laps. He better run laps to get in shape, I guess.
For the beatdown. I skipped over at the beginning of the match when Shawn brought out Jose Lothario to the Sexy Boy theme.
Yeah.
And Jose Lothario just gets on the mic and he says, at WrestleMania number 12, they will bring San Antonio, their only heavyweight champion. Mm-hmm. Jose Lothario.
I mean, he certainly added to sort of the legitimacy and also the babyface push of a Shawn Michaels. It's hard for me to kind of recall somebody less charismatic attached to Shawn Michaels, though.
Jose Lothario was very much, I think, a personal favor on Shawn's behalf of bringing this guy in. And I feel for the story of WrestleMania 12, where they very much played off of these guys going off, they're training for the biggest athletic contest. It made sense that here he is going back to his original mentor. Post-WrestleMania, from a creative standpoint, I didn't think there was any role for Jose Lothario. No. These two were very awkward together. Yeah. They just were, it was oil and water, these two presentations of the Sexy Boy with Jose Lothario.
And you got it in full effect seeing Jose Lothario walk out to Sexy Boy. That was that awkwardness exemplified.
Then there is, as Way mentioned, Vince interviewing Brett and noting that Shawn is a friend, not a great friend, but not an enemy. The hell does that mean? He's a friend, not a great friend, but an enemy. He
said not an enemy.
He's almost a frenemy.
Oh, wow. Maybe he unfollowed him.
They showed footage of the Ultimate Warrior making his return at WrestleMania 8 in 1992 and plugging his return for this Sunday at WrestleMania 12. And then they plugged the Slammy Awards, which will be airing on the USA Network that Saturday evening. This was, of course, the dark ages for Canadian viewers, where Raw would air on the new VR. This was pre-TSN, and it was never a given that it would even air on the Monday nights. And God forbid you ever would want to watch the Slammy Awards, because you were shit out of luck on that front.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Saturday night before WrestleMania, you were watching a hockey game. That was a Canadian Slammy Awards.
There's no internet, too, at this time. So.
No, I'd have to call Norm DaCosta or a 1-900 line and get Jim Ross's exclusive rundown of the Slammy Award winners, as he would probably take many pauses so that the minutes would just ring up on my phone bill to find out who won the Best Buns Award. Up next, we had Aldo Montoya against Hunter Hearst Helmsley at the time when Hunter was just coming out with random women on the show. And this woman he was accompanied with was assisted out of the ring by the gentleman, Aldo Montoya. And then he got attacked from behind for his heroic act. Montoya went for a splash, and Hunter got his knees up, stomping him down. This was when Vince decided to chat about the Ultimate Warrior's return, stating this is not a bait and switch. We're not talking about an 8-minute match. And someone who beefs about making $30 million in the ring. This preposterous statement. And it would not be a bait and switch. The Warrior would actually beef quite a lot about finances. And Hunter and Warrior wouldn't even sniff the 8-minute mark of their match. So we were kind of talking about a pretty quick squash match at WrestleMania, in fairness.
Well, yeah, we also got none of those Billionaire Ted skits.
No, there were none that aired on this show, and that was going to be featured at WrestleMania 12. That was the big culmination of these damn skits. Lawler says that the expression on Hunter's frustrated face reminds him of Princess Di. And Vince asks, is that in relation to the recent car accident?
Not the one that...
This is not the car accident of 1997 where Princess Diana died. Instead, this was another car accident. So one of those unfortunate hindsight comments that doesn't play well in history.
Well, they also joke about mad cow disease.
Yes. Lawler makes a mad cow joke instead.
So... it's a little bit more general, not as personal. And
Lawler was force-feeding the pop culture of the day.
Yeah.
Even stating that there is no quit in Aldo Montoya. He's like Pat Buchanan. As we were in an election year, much like we are at present. So I guess he couldn't use this line in relation to Jeb Bush this week, because there was some quit in Jeb Bush. Bowing out of the race. What did you think, by the way, of that political tactic where JebBush.com expired last week and Donald Trump scooped it up and it redirected to Donald Trump's website last week?
We talked about this.
Did we talk about this?
Yeah, we went online to look up
I can't remember what I talked to you about.
I
had zero recollection of talking.
Spent like 10 minutes on this, man.
Boy. Maybe I got jumped by some people in Syracuse.
Maybe.
I'm having concussion issues going into WrestleMania, and you're going after my head. There's a reverse cross by Aldo Montoya. He lands a drop kick, tilt-a-whirl head scissors. Then there was a high cross from Montoya for a 2 count. Montoya then ducks down and takes the pedigree, and Hunter comes off the ropes, winning at 4:30.
Yep. Yeah, not much here. I thought Helmsley looked really good, very strong in the ring. I think Hunter's punches and strikes and knees in particular all looked excellent. The Aldo Montoya mask is certainly the stuff of legend. And to kind of see it again here in video.
The jockstrap.
It looked like a kid had taped his face up with playing with masking tape. This mask was just so poorly done.
Just about every mask at the time was awful. I mean, Farouk Assad would have that stupid gladiator deal.
Yeah.
I mean, Mankind, the mask worked, but from an actual aesthetic perspective, he hated that thing because of the amount of sweat and how awkward it was.
Yeah.
They just had a kick for these masks.
Yeah, I mean, Kane, I think, had a pretty cool mask that lasted quite a while.
I always like Vader's, but Vader's really if you just look at it from point blank, it looks silly, but it was...
They didn't make that.
No, they didn't come up with that, but I'm saying just in general, that mask, it's much like a name. I think if you just looked at that, again, this thing looks ridiculous.
But it works.
But Vader was a monster, and the mask was part of the package.
It works for his gimmick. There are other mask guys, like Kwang. I didn't really work.
Not exactly beefing up the list of...
So, this Portuguese Man of War.
We've got to be nationalistic, too, in our presentation of Aldo Montoya. Make sure the Portuguese community is aware.
What it actually was, what do you know about the story heading into this Warrior Triple H match? Was it to be anything more than a squash?
Oh, Triple H thought it was. Triple H thought this was going to be his defining match, and it's a famous story where he went to the Warrior the day of.
We'll get to it more next week.
Yeah, Hunter had grand plans for this match, and Warrior had his own plans for the match, and guess who won out?
Yeah.
The minute 36 version.
I can't wait.
So then we had a segment that was given the disclaimer, edited for television, with Goldust present on the Hollywood backlot with a mannequin of Rowdy Roddy Piper. This was a backup plan way because they had pitched the idea of doing something with O.J. Simpson for this year's WrestleMania, which was in the wake of the verdict, which had happened in late 95. So we could have seen Goldust as a character on the People vs. O.J. Simpson, but we were denied that because even the WWF had a tolerance for what would be considered tasteless.
You don't think they would have had OJ had they actually been able to?
I feel OJ would have been open to doing it for the right amount. 100% he would have been.
And you think the WWF backed off?
The WWF made the decision not to do it.
Wow.
I mean, that was an internal decision that this might be in bad taste to be using this guy.
That surprises me.
Well, this was 96, where maybe they did have... Let's put it this way. I think if that OJ trial had happened in 98, I think they would have just gone full steam ahead and used him.
Interesting.
And the OJ side, I mean, for a guy that signed a book deal that would have outlined a hypothetical murder plot, I don't think this was a guy high on the moral sense either. But maybe they could have got Cuba Gooding Jr. to play O.J. Simpson.
Well, Jerry Maguire came out
in 96.
96?
Yeah.
You know,
so if they had showed him the money, Cuba would have done it with Goldust. So instead we had Goldust against Roddy Piper at WrestleMania in the Hollywood Backlot Brawl. Roddy Piper was brought back to television after Vader had destroyed then-President Gorilla Monsoon on television in a pretty big angle at the time. Gorilla did not do physical angles, and he got destroyed by Vader the night after the Royal Rumble, and it led to an interim president coming in the form of Roddy Piper, and that was his reintroduction to television. And this was at the point when Goldust was certainly a very... let's say controversial character at the time, because this was 1996 and they were pushing the homosexual tones to the max. And this particular segment was essentially Goldust fondling this mannequin and discussing their match, all with the double entendres of this taking place in a backlot. And there was an obvious edit as Dustin Runnels, Goldust, crouches down onto his knees, and we just cut to him standing up again. And I guess leave it to your imagination what direction the segment went there and had to be edited for television. And then he just destroys this mannequin against the wall. And that's our setup for the backlot brawl.
Yeah. It definitely seemed very risque in the context of the rest of this show to have this character. I mean, the Goldust character definitely seemed like a far better fit in the Attitude Era, but I think that's part of the reason why I find him so interesting. In watching segments like this, I think his look and these promos, I think they've aged well. I mean, you know, would we ever see kind of like homoerotic tones kind of played up in a heel fashion today?
I can't imagine. In this climate, there is no way you would present... Because the subtext of this is, gross, he's gay.
Right.
That was the reason for this guy being a heel, which was cleverly disguised as mind games.
Yes. But I think as far as, you know, homoerotic heel characters or flamboyant characters go, I think Goldust is the best that wrestling's ever had in terms of just creativity and the mystique that they were able to create with this character that you wouldn't see even beyond this in characters like a Billy and Chuck or like Lenny and Lodi. You know, they were much more just kind of comedic on face value. Oh, these are gay guys. Whereas Goldust was just so mysterious and, you know, like how does one even come up with a look like that? What's the backstory there? It was just, there is a lot of depth to the character, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, certainly this was a very interesting character that you can look back at the time and the goal of how they wanted the crowd to react to this character and make people feel uneasy about this. However, you also look at the end of the day, when it was time to turn Goldust babyface, they had to establish this is a straight man. This man can't possibly be gay. I mean, we'll put our audience's mind at ease with Jerry Lawler flat out asking him, "Aren't you queer?" I mean, that was and the same with Billy and Chuck was, okay, at the end of the day, we're not really gay. Let's not get crazy here. And I don't know if we have necessarily gotten to a point where they would present a a homosexual character where that's not the defining trait. I mean, Darren Young, I kind of applaud the fact that they didn't make a story out of his homosexuality. I think most people are aware that this guy is gay, but they simply are not going to push that that's my label or something like that. It's not a big deal. It shouldn't be.
And I feel like part of the fault of some of the instances that you mentioned is the turn, and I don't think necessarily to turn Goldust. Goldust played babyface, but it had nothing to do with his sexuality. He played a babyface because he was a weird, eccentric guy who happened to be funny, whether it be with the Tourette's thing or with like Booker T at Goldust and Goldust. It just his sexuality no longer became a defining part of this character.
Michael Hayes is then pushing merchandise with the limited edition WWF embroidered leather jacket, which comes with your own name. You can get your name embroidered on this jacket. 100% leather sleeves for only 3 easy payments. It's always easy payments. You notice that? It's never a moderate or extreme payment, stressful payment. 3 payments of $59.95 with the WrestleMania 12 logo on the back. Call now. $180 for this piece of shit.
I love that they include these on the network versions of the shows.
And always, phone number no longer in service. Like, what moron is calling this thing?
And always with Michael Hayes doing his pitch.
Well.
And I thought he did a fine job of it. He'd be a wonderful QVC salesman if he ever stopped working for the WWE. But some of the lines that he would have to read here, trying to sell this leather WrestleMania 12 jacket, he tried to describe this thing as, we're talking a lifetime memory here, ladies and gentlemen. This is a lifetime memory you could own.
He's not lying.
If you own this thing, you'd remember it forever.
I wonder how people, because for myself, my introduction to Michael Hayes as a child was as Doc Hendricks. I didn't have the world-class back history. I didn't see him in the NWA. My introduction was him doing segments like this, and had to go in reverse that as I got older. Then I got to see the whole career of Michael Hayes. And I wonder how people would be today if you take a guy who was really a pivotal figure in history, awesome promo. I mean, throw out a name like Bubba Ray Dudley.
Yeah.
If he was brought back in this incarnation as a pitchman for the WWF, I mean, how weird that would be.
Yeah, it would be a little weird.
Like Doc Hendricks, his role was just to host the live event segments and sell merchandise, and he was good at it. He was very good at it. Mm-hmm. It's just strange that if you had grown up and watched him in world class and other places, and here he is, and he's being used for this.
Or let's say like a Stone Cold Steve Austin. People growing up today only know him as a podcast host, and not necessarily Stone Cold Steve Austin from 1998, 1999. It's kind of strange, but we did get to see him perform briefly.
That's true. We'll get to that. Vince McMahon introduces The Undertaker, who comes out with Paul Bearer, and Bearer states that Taker had Bret Hart beat at the Royal Rumble, and it was Diesel that cost him the title. Then we saw the highlighted In Your House, where Diesel was pulled under the ring with mysterious smoke engulfing the ring, presumably Diesel and his body succumbing to whatever it was under the ring, and he just evaporated.
Yeah.
There's condensation everywhere. And Diesel lived. And then during the Bret Hart that was at the Hart and Diesel cage match at In Your House, and then Diesel would respond by destroying The Undertaker's casket with an axe. And then they showed an angle where a mysterious casket appeared at ringside, and Diesel opened up the casket to find a wax figure of himself inside, which I thought at the time was a really cool angle.
It was a really nice wax figure. It looked just like Kevin Nash.
It was scary as a 12-year-old watching this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought it was a cool angle. They did this years later with, actually, Teddy Long just talked about this when he was interviewed by Mouth about doing a similar angle where he was in a casket.
What did they do with the Kevin Nash wax figure? I want to know.
Maybe it's going to be at Access this year.
Well, why this year? Why wouldn't it happen there every year?
You know what? They're going to have a sub-forum called WWE-Waxess with all the wax figures on it.
Oh, my God.
Wait, when they enter my head, I just fucking sprint towards it. There's no discretion. Taker speaks and says at one time he would have been content simply beating and embarrassing Diesel. But after he put his hands on Paul Bearer, he saw Diesel's future with the corpse, and his future is now a dismal light, and he will rest in peace. Kevin Nash's future can be called many things. A dismal light, it was not. He had some great years afterwards, and this was at the time when it was well known. He had given his notice, and he was on the way out, and he was essentially asked, you're going to lose to The Undertaker at WrestleMania. You're going to lose to Shawn Michaels the following month at In Your House. How that necessarily made sense that he got the title match after the loss to Taker. That's creative liberties. And you're going to lose to the Ultimate Warrior. He said, 2 out of 3, we're done. All right. And he did 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3, one of them being my best friend.
Exactly. And not going to say no to a Taker loss. And that was Kevin Nash's wrap-up. And then, of course, doing the curtain call in May.
Where was Scott Hall at this time?
Scott Hall was supposed to do WrestleMania. And then it was known that he was going to be leaving, and then he magically a failed drug test came up.
Okay, so he missed Mania as a result of
Yes,
that.
he didn't end up working WrestleMania, so he was also known to be leaving as well, and was coming off of a Crybaby match with Sean Waltman the prior month. So you had a lot going at the time for Scott Hall. And Vince asks, will Diesel's dismal light, or Jerry Lawler said this, will Diesel's dismal light be stuffed out at WrestleMania? They were going to have a candle match.
Did you like the way the Undertaker character was kind of treated here with Paul Bearer basically kind of setting up the promo and then Taker taking the rest of that promo, actually being quite vocal?
Yeah, this was certainly at a time when they were certainly giving more to the Undertaker. It wasn't so much Paul Bearer doing all the heavy lifting. This was also a time, though, where you felt that the Undertaker character in 96, it did have to somewhat move further.
A little cartoonish.
Yeah, I look at this as, like, Taker was kind of sitting on the fence with his character in 96, and seeing where the industry was going, he would have to adapt to it.
But it's amazing that they would go on to make it even arguably more cartoony and more mystical in the years ahead before finally, turning him into the motorcycle guy.
That was a byproduct of it, but I think also it was trying to give more
adults.
Yeah, to The Undertaker. I think that was the thought process with the Kane storyline, that here's this murder mystery. But you're very right in the sense it went cartoonish in a different way than The Undertaker had been the prior 6 years at this point. All right. Up next, we're taking a look at
Bad Street.
The Raw Band. Yeah. Featuring frontman Doc Hendricks, which we only got a glimpse of playing to the San Antonio crowd in Texas, who would be a crowd that would actually probably appreciate this.
Right.
And he's playing Bad Street USA.
Yeah. Live on Raw.
This was nuts.
Yeah.
And we got none of it, basically.
You got no mention that what song he was performing.
No.
He was just playing this in the background as Vince was talking over top of it. This is just background music.
That was it. And no acknowledgement of what the song was, who this guy was to this audience. But I'm sure people in the crowd, they very much remembered.
Oh, yeah.
Because it wasn't all that. It was only a decade prior that he was doing all the stuff with the Freebirds.
So does he own the rights to that song?
Well, that thing ended up going to court because the guy who did claim to own the rights, Jimmy Papa, they had to go to court over the ownership of Bad Street USA a number of years back. But in 96, I guess it was Michael Hayes who felt, Bad Street USA, that's me.
Does he know any other songs, do you think? Or do you think they played this on loop for an hour?
Maybe it was just the greatest hit of the Raw Band was Bad Street USA.
The Raw Band.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah.
The Raw Band. Next, we had a video feature on Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, voiced by Jim Ross. And this is all about their training. We see Michaels super kicking guys in an empty warehouse. And
This is part of the training.
Yeah,
Super
just
Six guys.
knocking guys out in practice. I mean, flash knockouts. Probably Commission was overseeing this in Texas with a fine-tooth comb. And then Michaels with a heart-to-heart sit-down with Jose Lothario stating that he would not bring Jose all the way to Anaheim unless he was winning the title. And what does Jose say? It better be true. You better not be fucking around here, man, because this is a long fucking trip to California for me. Mm-hmm. I can't be making all these little treks for you. You win this title or I'm going to be pissed. Then we got into a voiced-over black and white piece on Michaels and Hart. Very cinematic here. Mm-hmm. Hart is training with his father, Stu, and the question is asked if Bret will be a mere mortal after WrestleMania if he were to lose this. And they go into Hart's training footage, and we get an interview with a shirtless Bret, and then swimming in his home pool, this all being footage that they shot for Wrestling with Shadows. Shirtless Bret.
Wait. Was it the same footage that
they were shooting Wrestling with Shadows at this time?
Yeah, but was this the footage that the Wrestling with Shadows people shot that WWE used, or was?
I don't know if it was separate shoots.
It's probably just coincidental.
Well, it was the same locations. Locations.
Brad, where can we shoot some B-roll of you?
My pool.
I got a pool.
Well,
I got a pool.
So anyway, he compares. This was interesting. He compared this situation against Shawn Michaels to him and Randy Savage, and how he felt he was getting onto the heels of Randy Savage, and then one day he just surpassed Randy, and then goes into his preparation and game plan for this match with Shawn Michaels. But I thought that was interesting because Bret and Savage were really close friends. There was zero animosity between these two, and I almost felt that for the narrative they were very much pushing at the time, that this is the new generation. Our argument against WCW is we are younger, more athletic, that Hart very well could have just used Hogan as this benchmark that he passed years ago as the guy, and instead used Savage's name.
Right, and that probably is because they were friends, much like how, or maybe more on more equal footing, perhaps, than he and Hogan were. In order to make that comparison between him and Savage and him and Shawn,
because this was not a shot at Savage, but certainly it was him saying, I surpassed him, at a time when this guy was very much an active, everyday performer in WCW.
Right. But I really liked, again, Bret very much grounding the feud in reality by bringing things like that up. I really like the build overall for both of these people. Very much, the way that what I think is now kind of known as sort of the UFC build, where you focus a lot on the men training, and you focus on, in this particular storyline, neither man really being doing any dastardly deeds. It's just both men trying to train really hard to become the very best in the company. It's interesting, though, to at least try to study the tone of these two separate videos. Bret's or Shawn's story is all about him working really hard to try to achieve his boyhood dream, as they say, and the music is much more hopeful sounding. But Bret's video almost kind of came across like he was being paranoid that he was about to lose his spot to this young up-and-comer. And Bret's music underneath his video was a lot more kind of high-tension and stressful wartime type of music.
There was a realistic element to that, because Bret has talked about in the years afterwards that he felt that exact way going into WrestleMania. Like, he beat Diesel for the title in November of 95, and it wasn't like, hey, we're running with you. I mean, Diesel had not been a great champion on top.
He was the transitional champion.
He was very much put in a transitional role. Like, you are getting Shawn ready. That's your role here. And he felt that this company, he had stated he was the one being sent on all these shows, working nonstop while Shawn was given time off to train for this match. And he had that certain wrestler paranoia that they're putting me in this situation and booking me so hard, running me to the ground in the idea that Shawn is going to look better in this 60-minute match, and I'm going to get blown up and get exposed in this 60 minutes, and Shawn's going to be presented as the guy, the better guy. And he's talked about that publicly. So I think Brett was always able to take those things and work them very well into his story, which is what came out here. There was that very much the on-screen presentation of these two rivals very much extended to two very much professional rivals that were angling for the same top spot at the time. So this was a very good video package, I thought, and he further went into Brett talking about getting the first major shot in and the first fall, putting Michaels on defense, and he'd constantly be making mistakes, and then it would be a snowball effect, and how this match would symbolize who is the best wrestler in the WWF. And the big hook coming out of this was, stay tuned, because coming up later tonight, we will release the Slammy-nominated music video involving Bret Hart. That was our go-home hook on the final Raw before WrestleMania 12.
That probably made you really want to see this match.
It lit a fire in me. Owen Hart, accompanied by Jim Cornette, took on Ahmed Johnson, which would be our final match of the show. And Vince getting in his big final push, stating, WrestleMania.
It all happens at WrestleMania, of course. WrestleMania, perhaps the greatest single value in sports entertainment today, ladies and gentlemen. But you know, whether or not it's on pay-per-view or a live event spectacular, one thing you can be guaranteed of, that is you're not going to get ripped off. You're going to get your money's worth and then some here in the World Wrestling Federation. The WWF superstars giving everything they have, ladies and gentlemen, for themselves as well as for you. No over-the-hill gang here, that's for sure.
Perhaps the single greatest value in sports entertainment today. He promises you, the viewer, that if you buy WrestleMania, you will not be ripped off. You will get your money's worth with the WWF. No over-the-hill gang here.
Whoa.
Oh, my God. Ouch. Man, like, had he just stood on top of the Raw announce desk, unzipped his pants, and urinated on WCW's talent roster, I don't think he could have been more blatant here. Yeah. Fuck those guys.
Yeah, it seemed like that was his biggest, the source of his sort of ammunition against WCW was always, these guys are old. And I don't know if that really, did that deter you from wanting to watch WCW? That you're
No, because it was stars.
Yeah.
To me, it will remind me of when an MMA organization might state something like
Horace Gracie and Ken Shamrock.
Well, in some sense, yeah. It's like, but
not that bad.
No, it's not that extreme. But, I mean, in terms of match quality, I mean, you're putting a Brett and Shawn up against this was March of 96, which featured that god-awful uncensored main event, which was about, comparing those 2 months pay-per-view main events, they were about as distinct as Kimbo and Dada versus whatever you want to talk about as another main event of a UFC caliber. But to me, the argument, well, we've got the better athletes, we've got the better matches in the ring, we've got the better fights in the ring. People are naturally drawn to stars. And for WCW, they had acquired all of these stars that many people had grown up with, and here they are in a new environment, different combinations, and it felt fresh to many people. Hulk Hogan felt in early 96 he was far from fresh, but he would become much more fresh later in the year. And it was taking a lot of these old rivalries. When Piper was brought to WCW, no one looked at his birth certificate. They said, man, this is a massive feud from my childhood that's now being done with Hogan as the heel. That's new to me. I don't give a fuck about how old these guys are. This is interesting.
Yeah, not yet, at least.
Yes, they would run its course, and that was the key, was knowing how long you could run with something like that. And the WWF's counter was, look, it's Ahmed Johnson. Ahmed lifted and launched Owen onto the mat, and they showed Diana Hart in the front row watching on, who would have no involvement in this at all. She was just showing. The Bulldog comes down to ringside as Vince notes that Yokozuna and Jake Roberts are not here tonight. Owen comes off the turnbuckle for a Thez press, and Ahmed just awkwardly turns it into a spine buster, then applies a bear hug, and Bulldog distracts Ahmed with Owen hitting a spinning heel kick and sending him to the floor. They went through a commercial break. Ahmed lands a spine buster. The crowd is getting behind him, and then he goes for the Pearl River plunge when the British Bulldog runs in for the DQ and ends the match. Ahmed fights off the Bulldog and Owen with a double clothesline. Then Vader runs in, attacking Ahmed. They're triple teaming him as Cornette is holding referee Jack Doan in the corner. And then lo and behold, Yokozuna and Jake Roberts are in the building. And they come down, they send the heels to the floor as Vince and Lawler run through the WrestleMania card. And this would be our 6-man tag that would be happening Sunday.
Yeah, clearly an era where they weren't trying to peak the end of the show for the biggest angles. This was, largely missable. I was kind of surprised to see just how big Yokozuna had gotten.
No, he had gotten out of control in 96.
But just to even kind of still see him running to the ring, even at this size, I couldn't believe that he was still at least somewhat mobile at this point.
And then our big ending to the show was the music video, the exclusive sneak peek at the Slammy-nominated video, You Start a Fire.
What are the other nominees for this category?
I don't know what else was up for this. I assume the Raw band had a few nominations. I don't know which band put this one together.
Maybe he meant Grammy.
The highlights of this video, beyond the lyrics, were Bret Hart sporting a Hockey is Life t-shirt during that run of shirts where blank is life were...
I don't remember that.
Oh, these things were all over the place.
Oh.
It's just blank is life. And addressing this crowd where Bret was wearing, in addition to his sunglasses, a white t-shirt, white jean short combination. That one Bret Hart is the only man who could, I won't say pull off, but attempt to pull off.
Yeah.
Great look. So that was Raw. Did it light a fire in you by the end for WrestleMania?
I mean, I'd say this video. Well, I really like the Bret Shawn interaction that the two had. I love the Doc Hendricks T-shirt or leather jacket sell. I love this Bret Hart cheesy '90s music video where it seemed like the stuttering effect was a very popular.
Oh, they loved it.
Video filter in the '90s.
What is my brain telling me?
Like every shitty '90s video that you've seen.
What do you think this thing? What production budget did the WWF pump into this?
Probably nothing. They got one of their guys who edits video packages to just compile all these Bret Hart highlights and put it together. But
you are the air I breathe, watching as the flames get higher.
No boy.
Feel my desire.
Yeah, a fine song.
Really motivating.
Yeah. It's no. It's never a right time to say goodbye, though. That is the culmination, I think, of Bret's musical career. That, along with the Rascals.
I was going to say if the Rascals had maybe done a remix of this.
He's got some great songs, Bret Hart. But a very brief episode of Raw. I really can't say it was required viewing at the time. I think the bar is set far higher for go-home shows these days. Certainly no matches that are really worth going out of your way to see. But, it was really nice to kind of get us in the mood by giving us a sort of a reintroduction to a lot of the characters on the roster at this time.
All right, we're going to head over to the Law message board and get some feedback in. I'll start off with Daniel from Pittsburgh. I was entertained by this show. It was nice how they used a variety of ways to promote matches. There was a music video, an in-ring promo, a tape promo, and a documentary-style build-up. The current product could learn from this. The only match that had a poor build-up was the Ultimate Warrior versus Triple H match. Where was the hook to get excited about the match? 8 out of 10 $200 WrestleMania jackets. To me, that match, that was all built around the Ultimate Warrior showing up on Sunday. He was never going to be... They were not giving that appearance away for free. No promo. You have to pay to see this somewhat reclusive figure return, and Jerry Lawler throwing into doubt, what shape is this guy even in? That was the hook for the match. That was it.
Yeah. And
there's no personal issue.
The draw is to see not only that, but also the entrance and to see the music or to hear the music and just to see this guy run down the ramp. That was what you're paying for.
The opponent was inconsequential.
Right.
At that time.
Yeah. Okay, we go to Matt in suburban Detroit. For Raw, that was 1 hour. WWF jammed in a lot of good, forgotten elements to the show. The good, the 3 promo packages, the Bret Shawn interaction, and Vince McMahon on commentary. The bad, the Click Cam and Taker's promo. The weird, Gold Dust. 8, WWE needs to bring back some of these lost moments to today's product out of 10.
Martin from London writes, it felt strange having a Shawn Michaels match, complete with the click cam, start the show, even giving mic time to Jose Lothario. But with all the video packages and that You Start the Fire Bret Hart video, there was no doubt what the hardest promoted match for WrestleMania 12 was. The other main takeaway for me was the pot shots Vince took at WCW throughout the show. They were a constant during the Monday Night War, but they were especially heavy at this point, and this episode didn't even have a Billionaire Ted skit. It's not a go-home show like we're accustomed to today, but they had shows like Superstars to further drive home the angles, and this Raw left you with no doubt what you were meant to look forward to. Plus, it was a fun Easter egg seeing Doc Hendricks singing Bad Street USA. 7 destroyed mannequins out of 10.
Sean in Calgary. Great episode. From what I saw, Al Snow was doing everything in his power to ensure that Shawn Michaels would carry a concussion into WrestleMania. P.S. Who was the woman with Triple H?
I don't think she was anybody other than probably the hired model of the night, and probably was never seen again. Peter in Toronto. When I was 12, this Raw confused me, and still does to this day. What was up with the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels tension after Bret interfered on behalf of Michaels when Marty was holding his tights? It seemed to me they were making Shawn the heel for some reason. Bret came across as doing the right there. So what was there to accomplish? Leaf got in a lot more offense than I expected, but poor Marty. He returns in late 95, but looked so down the totem pole compared to Shawn at this time.
The idea was that I think he
was building up tension between the two. That was it.
Yeah, while keeping both men babyface. I mean, the idea was that Shawn wanted to go after Marty, but Bret was in the way, so he just kind of gave him a light shove, and Bret was like, Don't shove me.
Yeah, they were just playing off the, Bret playing the big brother role and Shawn wanting none of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're supposed to feel like either person's in the right or wrong. It's just that both men are kind of tense.
And Peter goes on to say, the rest of the show at least showed direction in building up the rest of the card, so it was okay for what it was. Also, do you guys know if they explain Razor just disappearing for a few weeks now after challenging Goldust anywhere, anytime, any place because I want his ass promo? He had been gone for a few weeks now, but as a kid I was wondering where the hell he was. 7 Al Snow heads out of 10. Well, yeah, that was the many directions they had. There was the O.J. Simpson idea. Then they were going to go with Razor. He had been suspended, and Piper ended up being inserted into that open slot.
Dave in Orlando, just a question. Was it always the WWF's intention to make Shawn out to be the cooler one between him and Bret, as those training videos made it obviously clear who was going to win?
Was Shawn appreciably more cooler in presentation?
I mean,
he was certainly the focus. Like, he was the guy coming out of WrestleMania that they were building around.
Dude had a zip line.
That's true. And Bret just walked to the ring.
Out. I mean, I think it's... Yeah, I think it seemed pretty slanted towards Shawn, but I wouldn't say it was 100. I mean, I was actually surprised on this show that Bret even got that music video at the end. I almost feel like maybe that video was probably maybe a late addition just to time fill, and didn't really play into the storyline at all. But yeah, Shawn was the person they were trying to build, so. I don't doubt that. They probably decided to give him a bit more.
What do you give this Raw?
Maybe 6.5.
I'll go 5. I mean, they had some good elements to it. I think there was nothing, bad in terms of what the goal of this was, to build up WrestleMania. They honed in on their key matches, and I think they did a very good job with the main event. I think by the end of this, you knew you were getting something special on Sunday that they were pushing as different from any main event you've seen prior. Doing a 60-minute match is certainly something ambitious, both in terms of the performance you're asking as well as the audience and a gamble you're taking. How is this audience going to react to a match that we're advertising is going an hour? So very ambitious on that side of things. That will end this week's show, and next week we are going to dissect WrestleMania 12, how they pulled off the 1996 event, and we'll be chatting about that. Of course, easy to watch on the WWE Network, and then 2 weeks from now we will review the Raw coming out of WrestleMania 12.
Featuring the debut of Mick Foley.
That is right. Mick Foley will make his debut. We skipped over that part. There was a vignette on Raw teasing Mankind and even showing him. I mean, there was no mystery to the look of him, but very campy. And Todd Pettengill voicing over this new monster heel, an awful combo, I thought.
The wait is over.
Leave the light on. I'm coming home.
The time has finally come.
I'm not like most people.
Are you ready?
Don't you try screaming for mercy.
The debut of Mankind. It's Raw, and it's next week.
Todd Pettengill
That
and his
sounds worse.
voiceovers just...
Maybe Doc Hendricks.
Doc would have been a better call than Todd Pettengill. I'll tell you that much. Okay, so that's going to end the show. You can go up to liveaudiowrestling.com, catch all of our latest shows, The Law from Sunday night running through Fastlane, Monday's review of Raw. What an interesting show from Detroit that was, with me and Way and our unfiltered thoughts. That is up. And, of course, youtube.com/liveaudiowrestling is where you can get all your visual needs.
Yeah.
And maybe this Friday on Ask Away, Way will wear his new hat.
Maybe.
Perhaps. We'll try and convince him by that point. Anything else you'd like to mention? Anything else going on?
No, I feel like this is some really good, like, real estate. We should be, like, I don't know, maybe we can promote a charity or, like, something like that.
Sure. Do you have one in mind?
No.
Okay, well, why don't you think of one? And then you can use this time to promote.
I would have to do some research.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting you do, and then next time we talk.
Oh, next time? Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, not this moment, not on the
I'll
spot.
I'll probably forget by next time.
Okay, well, very charitable of you. Okay, we're going to go out, and we'll end this show with what else, then?
You lit a fire in me.
All right.
What else would you play?
No, I don't know. I thought maybe that or the Raw Band. One or the other.
Oh.
Which
no.
one started the show?
I'd say we end with the Brett song.
Yeah, we got to end with
Just like Raw, the way Raw ended.
That's perfect. Here it is. Your final big argument to buy WrestleMania 12. This video. And this beautiful music entering your ears that would trigger you to pick up the phone and call your local cable company and say, I want you to light up my cable box with the fire of WrestleMania 12 Sunday night from Anaheim, California.
With a soul that's on fire.